Welcome to What the Health, an independent approach to your health span. Have you noticed how our healthcare system may not have your best interest in mind? Join Dr. Eckel in this fun and sometimes disturbing exploration of the state of healthcare and what it means for you. Now, here's your host, Dr. Eckel.
Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Greg Eckel. This is What the Health, and we have a fun one today. Biohacking physical and emotional pain through the energy fields, how to live a pain-free life with my favorite quantum pharmacist and functional energy medicine expert, Dr. T.K. Huynh. He's got a doctor of pharmacy and a fellowship in anti-aging regenerative functional medicine. A friend of mine, I got to spend New Year's with him, and he uses a combination of ancient energy medicine techniques and advanced technologies, created a coherence bioinformation cream that liberates your minor aches and pains in 60 seconds via the emotional stress matrix. His company, MindBody Matrix, has 25 years of passion and mission to help everyone find peace and live a pain and stress-free life. Dr. TK, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Craig. That's great.
Yes, I am so excited for this one, and I want what is your background? So we were talking before we got on here around pharmacy, but I love that you're a quantum physicist, quantum pharmacist, also in a physicist type of realm. How did you get into this? What's your background with pain management? And that cream is very potent as well. So let's start there.
Okay, yeah, so I came from a very, very traditional background. I was trained in pharmacy. I got a doctorate in pharmacy in Massachusetts. And then I practiced pharmacy for about 15 years. Throughout that, I was supervising different pharmacy. I was pharmacy managers and pharmacy supervisor and all that. And then one day I realized that I wasn't really serving the people, but I was serving more of a corporate structure. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of discouraged me to leave the corporate world. So I opened up my own independent pharmacy, started doing more compounding, bioidentical hormones and pain creams and stuff. And what I realized was during that time, there's a huge epidemic of opiates and pain issue that was going on. And we're part of the problem as pharmacists and as pharmacy, because what we do is we're just cycling the prescription and creating a situation where we're just giving people opiates and giving them pills that help them take down their pain through the physical pathway, but we're not helping them with their psycho-emotional and their spiritual things that's going on in their house. And so what we wanted to do was like, how do we look at pain differently? So I started my journey of looking at different perspective than just your conventional pharmacy. And so one day I discovered energy medicine and started learning about Ayurvedic medicine beside the functional medicine and regenerative medicine. And how do we use all of these combined with the technology that we have that we can advance pain treatment? So that kind of lead me to discovering Nest Health and meeting Harry Massey, one of our close friends, and kind of learn and moved into this whole energy medicine realm.
And you took a deep dive. You created a whole company off of that. And so like, how exactly did you get there? Like what was, you're seeing the corporate component of in the pharmacy, you're supporting maybe not whole healing. So maybe let's dive into the component is all pain physical.
Well, yes. Pain is not just the physical part, but there's the psycho-emotional, the mind part, and then the spiritual part of pain. So we need to look at it as the whole elephant, not just part of the elephant. So we want to look at it, the physical, the psycho-emotional, and the spiritual part. And how do we attack those three versus just giving them opiate where it could help with the physical part of the pain. But really my journey into looking at all this started with my wife having a medical health issue that changes my whole perspective and course of everything.
So what take us on that journey together, because that's a pretty large leap for traditionally trained PhD pharmacist to then getting into quantum pharmacy. So
yes,
yeah.
So we own an independent pharmacy. I was working in a pharmacy and my wife was working at Target as a pharmacist. She calls me one day and said, honey, I don't feel good. I just want to call and let you know that you might need to come and pick me up. Said, absolutely fine. 15 minutes later, her pharmacy technician calls me and said, hey, we have the ambulance here.
Wow.
Your wife, Aline, is incoherent. She can't answer questions, but she's just laying on the floor. So we're going to take her to the emergency room. And I just want to call and let you know. So I said, okay, take her to Kaiser Hospital. I'll meet her there. And so I quickly drove through Kaiser. With my background working in the emergency department, I went directly to the back where the ambulance entrance is and walked straight into the room that they had her. At that point, I can see the attending emergency physician was doing her physical exam and testing her nerve sensitivity, poking the pin on the sole of her foot and asking her, can you feel this? And she's like, no, I can't feel it. And so he moved up to her knee and then her hip and to her hands, and her hand was she was laying on the gurney with her hand out, and he's putting his finger on her hand, say, can you squeeze my fingers? And she's have her hand out like this, and she's like, yes, I'm squeezing. He said, harder, harder, harder. And she's like, I'm squeezing really hard right now. And it's just, she's not doing it. So given my background, I looked at him and he looked at me, and we're like, just like had this puzzle, freaky sensation of like, what is going on? She's not moving. She lost all her movement pretty much from the neck down.
Wow.
So in that instant, I'm thinking stroke, paralysis. She's not doing any drugs, no physical accident. She's not on any medication or anything like that. But she's paralyzed from the neck down. So they took her in to do labs and x-rays and scans and all that stuff, and came back 2 hours later with the neurologist. And they told me that basically she's paralyzed from the neck down, but all her labs and everything seems normal so far. So they have to wait for a ICU unit to open up.
Wow.
And have me sign this paperwork to do a spinal tap. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is everything is just going so fast. And I just had to really stop and think and absorb everything and decide what I need to do, because I'm reading this spinal tap paper and it's telling me all these possible side effects of like paralysis and death and possible infection and all that stuff. And I'm like, you know what, just stop everything. Let me think about this, since we don't have a room for her to be admitted already anyway. So I had that time. So I asked the doctor that if they believe in miracle healing, energy healing, or whatever, if they can just give me a minute and let me focus on what I can do to help my wife, because she's paralyzed and we have 4 kids at this point in time.
Yeah.
Just a new baby, basically, almost 1 year old. And I'm thinking all of the possibility of all the things that can go wrong with having a new business and family and all that. And now my wife is paralyzed. So I asked if they can just give me some moment, let me focus on healing my wife through energy medicine and intention. So at this point, I was already a Nest Health practitioner using Harry Massey's energy systems and Nest scans. And so I was able to have that technology and the My Health and the scanning software to scan and look for energy blockage along her body acupuncture points and meridian and look for those blockage. So I asked the doctor if let me look at these and see where things can be wrong. And let me see if I can just help her. If they disagree, all they have to do is just walk out of the room, just give me some moment with my wife together. And so the nurse and the doctor left to see other patient. And at that point in time, I did her scan. And then I thought about Joe Dispenza's work. And at this point, I already read his book on You Are the Placebo. And thought about how he healed himself in the hospital when he got into that car accident. And so I manifested Joe and Harry to be in in that emergency room with me to help me heal my wife. And I started working on her and trying to clear out all her energy blockage along her meridians and acupuncture points. And by the time I started, she came into the hospital at about 10. By the time I got started on her was about 1 o'clock. In 2 hours, by about 3 o'clock, I saw her toe started to move slightly, and that gave me hope. So with that hope, I started working on her more. And by 5 o'clock, her fingers started to move. And about 5:30, she sat up and she said that I need to go to the restroom. So we pulled out her IV and her Foley catheter, and then she walked into the restroom. A few minutes later, the nurse came in and said, "What is going on? Where's your wife? What did you do?" I'm like, "I didn't do anything. She just got up and walked by herself. So I had nothing to do with anything." So at that point in time, she ran out, called the attending in. And when the attending, by the time they both got back in, they can hear the toilet flush. And my wife walked out of the door. And so they were like, "What is going on?" So we're like, "Hey, she just spontaneously healed herself and we want to go home." Because I didn't want her to be admitted and stay in the hospital of possible adverse events or just picking up infections and all that stuff. So we're like, "Hey, can we sign the non-consent form to release her and we'll go home and do the recovery and treatment at home?" So they said, "No, you're not leaving. The only way you're going to leave is you sign this non-consent form, and I won't let you sign it unless she could walk out to my desk out there and walk back by herself. You cannot help her." So she ended up walking herself out there, walking back slowly. But that night, by 6 o'clock, we walked out of the hospital. And I thought, basically that month, I thought about, going through that experience, like, what did I need to take away from that? And how does that really change my life and my perspective? So I thought about energy medicine and how technology can be used. If I had that experience and that glimpse in time, how would I use this to help change pain treatment, to help change the way we see pain? So that took me on that whole journey of looking into energy medicine, spirituality, mind-body medicine. And so it started this whole path of discovering more work by John Sarno's, Gabor Mate, more of Joe Dispenza's work and all this stuff.
So that's an incredible story. And not for the faint of heart, right? Because you had conviction and faith in that because you had never seen it. And here your wife is in the ER with unexplained paralysis. and you went for it. And so that's an amazing, thank you for sharing that. So what in your life's work, like this has become your life's work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what are you're giving me kind of chills here as we get into this. So what are you finding? What is the pain matrix? Like, what do you put in there? Like, what is the pain matrix?
So from the work of Harry Massey and Peter Fraser on, a lot of it is in their book on decoding the human body field. And it's about a whole new theory of thinking that back up into quantum physics. It's not just what their view is. It's all backed by quantum science, quantum physics. And so it goes back to the basic unit of life, of matter. And we're talking about the quantum particle of proton, neutrons, and electrons, and how they create vibration and they can carry information. And that is the start of matter. So at that point, it'll create a cell, and then the cell will create organelles. The organelles inside the cells, they each have their own vibration and energy and information. And then the cells makes up a whole organ. And then that organ has its own information, vibration, what we call coherent field. And then the body and the system makes up their own vibration and information and coherence. It's the blueprint of life. And a lot of time when there's disturbance through environmental toxin, bacteria, virus, or physical injury, that information get disturbed, what we call incoherence information. Then disease states and pain and all that stuff can start. But if we can correct these information to be more coherent, to be in a different state than what they are, then we can change this people's perspective on their whole conscious mind of pain interpretation.
Interesting. It is such an elegant system. And I really like how you boil it down into that picture for us, because it is, when you get in with both of those guys, with Peter Fraser and Harry Massey and the Nest system, it is, I tried to read one of Peter Fraser's papers from 2008. He did a lecture at Copenhagen. It was like, that was a brilliant man, right? Now he's left his body a couple years ago off the planet here, but the system that he left behind and how Harry is kind of developing that too, they were way ahead of their time, right? With over the last 21 plus years. And so it just feels like we're now just coming to a place where we can understand what the heck those guys have been talking about for so long. And for you to say it like that, in the coherent state of the organelles to the cell, to then the organs, to the whole human biofield, like you can measure the coherence. So maybe for folks that aren't familiar with that term coherence, what does that mean?
Coherence is the information in the system, or the vibration and waves and frequency. They have very distinguished pattern. When it's in coherence, it's in that pattern that make up a rock that is a rock, water that is water, eye that is an eye, an ear that is an ear, and that is coherence information. It's that blueprint. So it's like you're given a map, and that map has no malware or no disturbance or no mark over it. So that's coherence information.
Okay.
And what is incoherence information is where that information has been corrupt. It has, like, let's say your computer system has a virus in it, and it causes the software to be corrupt, and it's not working the way that it is. So that would be an example of incoherent. So what Nest did was they thought about how do we deliver coherence information into what they term infoceutical, into water, mineral water that can carry that information to help correct the disturbance of that information. And so what what I did was I thought about if they could do that type of structure information in water, how do I make it in a cream? So the cream is just coherence information that is vibrational, and it's been charged by light and protons and neutrons in terms of energy and frequency. That cream is just vibration of information that when you apply it onto your body, we're giving your body and that feel in the body, that information that it needs to vibrate correctly or operate correctly.
Got it. So when somebody's got pain, with different causes of the pain, it's an incoherent pattern to wherever they're having the pain, whether it be from an injury or some toxicity, all the myriad causes of pain. So you don't necessarily have to use opiates. Like you're saying, you can give the body the resonance or the information for being in coherence to remember, like, actually you're out of coherence. You're creating static on the system. So your pain cream brings it back into balance. Is that one way of saying it?
Yes, yes. So another way to explain that is, let's say for pain, when you have a physical injury, let's say on your knee or your elbow, we'll use the elbow. Let's say if you bumped your elbow, you have that physical stress part of the pain, or you've broken a bone there, your body goes into a state of fight and flight. And it sends nerves and information to your brain, and your conscious mind said, oh, you have pain there. You don't want to injure that. I'm going to increase the pain signal on the elbow so you don't further injure that. Yeah. And that is just a spurt of energy. The conscious mind interpret that. And so that way you take a step back and say, hey, I don't want to injure this anymore because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to kill myself. So that is the conscious mind interpretation of all that pain signal. But if we take a look through the mind and psychological perspective, is that if we send back information that has to do with love and peace and safety to the body and say, hey, you're safe, you're in a state of love and peace, you're not in danger anymore, then the mind will reinterpret the pain and lower that signal. So that's one way we can change the signaling or the interpretation of the pain. But the other way is, if let's say you had elbow pain, but it wasn't a physical injury, what can it be? Out of nowhere, sometime the mind body, the psychological component of elbow pain is someone trying to encroach into your territory. They're getting in too close to your personal space in terms of personal issues that might need to be resolved. And you're trying to push them out by forcing your elbow out to give yourself room. And that's the psycho-emotional component that can come with elbow pain. And so we could look at that. And a lot of time through traditional Chinese medicine, it could be energy blockage along that meridian that goes down to the fingers up here. And that energy blockage can be clear by using the cream because we give it more flow of information and energy when we apply the cream there. So that's the other way we try to tweak the cream.
Got it. And when I use this cream, I've been using your pain cream, and you shared with me there's a specific way that you do it with intention, and you really pull in all of the senses and utilizing the mind. This is a piece of why I created this platform, TK, is what the health, right? Like we have not been taught how these things work, right? Yes. And so coming across a light being like such as yourself that has a product that is very effective, and then you have you're utilizing all of the levels of healing, which I so appreciate and enjoy. So this whole component of you know, what's love got to do with it? Like the love and the
Yes.
peace and the joy and the security, like what does that have to do with pain? Because you're saying the body's injured, let's keep on the elbow. I broke my elbow. It's got, you know, first stages of inflammation and repair. But then my mind is under, like, I'm under the gun, like there's something coming to get me. Then you have a whole process of information that you're applying topically, but then there's also intentionality around this. So where do you go with that?
Yeah, so basically what we do is the body it's always trying to get into that homeostasis state. So it's that balance of fight and flight and peace and love and safety.
Mhm.
So when there is that imbalance of fight and flight, the body will create more pain signal to let you know, hey, you're trying, we need to survive, we need to live. And so we need to bring up the vibration of love, peace, and frequency. And so what we do is we charge the cream with the nest infraceutical of unconditional love,
Mm.
peace, like inner peace and joy, and change that. But how do you then do it? So the way that we figure out how to do it is a lot of time we just take a small pump of the cream and we put in the intention of whatever the psycho-emotional things that's going on in our life, our environment. It's okay. We put in that intention of that we are in a state of love, we are in a state of peace, we are in a state of joy. We thank the body for letting us know that there's that pain there, but it's okay. We are safe. We are safe to move forward. So we put in that intention. And what we want to do is change our neurosensory and change our body's breathing. So we can put in the intention of letting all that go. Exhale, do some exhale and inhalation just to let that stress go and let that information and the sense of the essential oil change our neurosensory. But the next thing what we want to do after that is put that information in our heart and the back of our neck. Putting that information in our heart, the heart acts as an organ that emit electromagnetic information, but it also receives information. And that information, when it receives into the heart, the pumping action causes electromagnetic, acoustic, and vibrational succussion of information to the rest of the cell. So that way the body knows what is going on in the environment. So we're giving that information to the heart, say, hey, there's peace, there's love, there's letting go, there's joy there. It's okay for you to move forward. And when we also rub the cream in the back of our neck, because through the work of Peter Fraser's, the brain hologram carry a lot of emotional and subconscious feel effect that can causes a lot of the fight and flight response. So what then we can soothe out that information in the what we call the brain hologram area and calm that information down, giving it information that has to do with love, peace, and joy and safety. So that's the first step. Then the second step is we also ground the cream with earth resonance, the crowning effect. So when we take the cream and we apply it to the physical area, it grounds that physical area, and then it reduces the physical impulse and sensation and the physical part of the pain. And hopefully the whole inflammatory cascade get to change because it changes through the grounding effect.
Wow.
So
wow. So what I mean, so have you had that process in the whole time, or has it evolved to that?
it kind of evolved in terms of how we observe the way that people were using it, and through literatures and studies and Heart Math Institute and Joe Dispenza's work on how the body and the mind need to be connected, need to be in that coherence phase, how we can shift our emotion from fight and flight and shifting it to a state of love and peace, and that can change his things. So what we want to do is basically put you into the state where even if you're not a meditator, you're in that state. So
got it. And by putting you into that state with the intentions, with the smelling, with the rubbing, the grounding into the area of bringing your innate intelligence in there to heal.
Yes.
I love that. Are there some lifestyle changes that need to occur as well for folks with pain or pain patterns?
Yes, especially for folks who are in chronic states of pain. A lot of time where we live, the environment, if we're putting our head next to a Wi-Fi and our cell phone when we go to sleep, that can create disturbance and causes chronic headaches. So it's just easily eliminated by moving our bed or moving our house away from a 5G station, or not putting our phone next to our head when we're asleep. Or someone who have chronic joint pain, it could be the psycho-emotional component of childhood issue, or it could be what they eat. Like, let's say nightshades. So nightshade is notorious for causing joint pain because some genetic issues that causes our body to convert these nightshade food into pain substance that can create more pain in the joint. Or a lot of time there's certain other food that we eat that can, like spicy food, can create more substance pre-production that can causes pain shortly after you eat for certain people. So those type of things, definitely some people who have chronic abdominal pain can get away with gluten and stuff like that, and that may help, right? And then sugars and overcooked vegetable oils and causes chronic inflammations in the body that can create more pain. So those are the lifestyle changes that need to be adjusted and watched.
Yeah, right. So like lowering the overall load on the body to allow it to heal. I love that.
And stress.
Yeah. The stressors. Actually, there were a couple patients this morning that I should recommend the cream for. So the grounding and meditation help with pain. So this, you're really coming holistically at the pain front rather than the opioid epidemic of, well, here's the Band-Aid, let's like dim the signal or turn it off. This is really looking at, well, here's health. How do we remind the body to get back into coherence and heal itself? And these are ways that you found to speed it up. So, all right, staggering story with your wife that started you down this journey. What do you have? I'm sure you have countless other stories of folks that have been in chronic pain that some process like this has helped.
Yes. Early on, when we were just kind of experimenting and we still had the pharmacy at that point in time, it was a great way for us to really give out the experimental part of the cream. So I would like drive from Fresno to Santa Cruz and charge all these things with the infoceuticals, with the technology that Harry had, and bring back and did like compounding of experimental pain cream, like put it in little vials and little syringes and giving it out to all these clients that came through the pharmacy with pain.
Wow.
And some of the story, one that stand out to me was one of the client who had just some minor pain, was just testing out the cream, but it ended up that her father had cancer and was suffering so much from pain through the process that none of even the opiates that was given to him was so strong that it didn't really help him what was going on in terms of like the cancer process and the pain that he went through. But when she started using the cream on him, it helped him so much. And I started thinking like, what is going on at that point in time? Like, how do I distinguish this from a pharmacological situation that really the pain medicine didn't help him, but the cream did. Like, what was the difference? And so I thought about the energy that we put in there, possibly all the grief that he was going through, possibly that he was not ready to let go of all the things that he has going on in his life, in terms of losing his life, and that hasn't been resolved. All the conflict that he had. And so when I thought about it, could it be the love, the peace, the joy that we put in there, the higher vibration, the higher frequency that really settle him in to a state of peace where it's more acceptance for him. And he felt that, and that really changes how he dealt with the pain of just letting go and finding that state of love and peace. And it gave him a really good 3 months.
Wow.
And during that time, she would email me and just kind of like just giving him the progress. And finally, her last email was in her appreciation and gratitude of what the cream did for her father in terms of changing his last 3 months of the last part of his life. And so it really gave me courage into looking into how this can really help people go through their psycho-emotional suffering. So
I mean, that is a huge, huge gift. And you know, a lot of folks might be thinking, gosh, I've never heard of this type of medicine, of like you're putting peace and love and joy vibrationally into the cream because of what's happening with under the inflammatory cascade, or in, you know, in a cancer diagnosis with that process going on, with, you know, really thinking it through of like, well, maybe he's got unresolved grief, and like that's the part that's ramping up more pain around the whole process. And, you know, discovering the remedy really gave him a better quality of life. So, and that was not with talk therapy. That wasn't with meditation. That was applying the cream.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you think to put in love and peace and joy and security into your cream? Like and how, you know, I'm familiar with the Nest system and the infoceuticals and programming frequencies, and you did describe it a little bit, but I want you to come at it another way with that discussion of like, what made you think to put those things in there?
One of the book that I read has to do with emotion and how that can create disease states. And what I discovered through the book is that emotion is just a packet of energy, of information. And it sends that through neurochemical, through biochemistry, through biology, through different perspective, and also through energy system that will send that information to the conscious mind to be interpreted. So it's just package of energy. And if its energy is high, we can lower energy by creating a different wave that is coherence to that versus incoherent. Sometimes waves will cancel each other out. And so basically, if we can try to cancel out the pain information by identifying different sets of pain frequency that has to do with different pain signaling pathway, then we can send that information back in and cancel some of that information and frequency.
Got it. And that is what you're calling the MindBody Matrix? Is that the MindBody Matrix is as the solution to this, or is that different?
Yes, it is. And because we can't no longer look at pain, health, disease through just one perspective of the drug is the final say. We got to look at pain, health, disease through everything else. So what is going on in our environment? What is going on in our head? What is going on in our spiritual belief? What is our higher self? What is our sole purpose in life? And how do we get there into that state? So,
wow, that is a much larger conversation and much more fun. You know, in the component, and listeners of the show know, I really, you know, this is the future of medicine here. This discussion around quantum fields and the quantum healing and how the body heals. So, you know, one understanding that I've come to is that, you know, any analogies of war with our bodies, I think in health should be done away with. That's archaic, and it's not proper thinking of what's going on. Ultimately, in the intelligence that is here, it's trying to correct and get back to one, because we are really, disease and suffering is just the separation from our wholeness and from our birthright, which is basically creator oneness, right? I kind of say, you know, we're light beings being compressed down into this body of matter. And then there's a lot of friction down here in the body. But ultimately, you know, when you can push through the whole thing of like compressing all of the particles in the universe into like a tiny grain of sand. It's just a bunch of space out here, right? We're pretending to be separate in the illusion that is, right? Well, we'll go there today, TK. And the but in that conversation, because I think it really is us waking up to this reality of like, wow, we have a lot more say, like you'd had with your wife, or you know, the patient that tried to cream out on her, was it her husband or her father, that had the excruciating pain, that, you know, with these higher vibrations or frequencies, because that is ultimately, we've got, you know, wave form, which is the frequency or light, or the particle form, which is more solid matter. But we can actually inhabit, we really truly are both of those at the same time. And we're just coming to the science to really explain that. So you've got a remedy that really addresses at that higher level. I guess my question in that is, where do you see pain management going in the next 10 years in light of this conversation? Like, never did I go to medical school in 1996 think I'm going to have this conversation with you about, you know, healing in the quantum field, really. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Yes. I think with technology that was created in the 40s, the 50s, Rife technology, Tesla technologies, frequencies, and all this information is really just a different form of energy healing. So it'll go back further into different cultures. They have their own different form of energy healing. You could be a shaman, you could be a Qigong master, a Reiki master, you could be anyone who give the intentions and the thought of healing someone. And so that's so ancient, but now we're bringing all that through technology. And really all that was just decoded in many ways through PMF technology, light therapy, vibrational acoustic therapy, cymatics, and stuff like that. Is that advancement will lead us into the next wave of medicine. That's kind of like where hopefully that influence stem cell treatments and different type of gene therapy that can help correct a lot of the chronic hereditary type of disease states that causes the pain.
Pun intended with the next wave of therapies, right? That is awesome. And so what, you know, you talked about, like, what is a step that listeners can take today, whether they have pain or not, but just in this discussion, what is something that they can put into action for themselves right now?
I truly believe that we're all different type of light being. We're here on earth for a purpose. And what we need to find is what is the lesson for our soul to learn on this earth in this lifetime to create a better life for our next lifetime, if you believe in reincarnation or not.
Sure.
But what we need to do is create a situation where we can have better, I guess, karmic credit in creating love and peace on this earth. So that way we can spread it out to all of humanity and create a situation where hopefully our next lifetime we get to be in a situation where we have better purpose. And
that component, that is beautiful, and thank you for sharing that. And I think the component with that is it's accessible now, right? One of the things that
yes.
I really, one of my purposes is really working on bringing heaven to earth now, right? Of creating yes. the more beautiful world our hearts know and desire. And well, how do we do that? Well, we have to relieve suffering. And it's basically,
yes.
it's in a system of oneness, it's all of us, like nobody gets left behind. And
yes.
it's almost overwhelmingly, it's overwhelming to think like that, but I think like that because I've seen it. I've seen it in, do the meditations, and it is a very bright future, right? Where versus what we get transmitted with now on the airwaves or the
yes.
mainstream media is to take us far away from any personal responsibility and response/ability, but also, poo-poos the whole idea of, oh, well, frequency, this is like, there's real science to support this conversation that we're having. So much so that it goes back even to the 20s and 30s and 40s. Like you said, some of these technologies have been here for so long. So it's like really bringing them forth, and why I wanted to really share you with my listeners and viewers here on What the Health is, you're out, like you found your life purpose and you're doing it. Like you're sharing the information, you're putting more love and peace and security literally onto people's bodies, TK. And then sharing that message with people. Let's just riff off of that a little bit on where, the other component you talked about, things on meditation. It seems like if people meditated, perhaps they would be more in touch with some of these vibrations. Or how does one get in touch with those vibrations if, they maybe have never experienced them? Or, we've got war in certain areas of the world now. And so like even more now than ever, it seems like we're needing these things.
Yes, I can definitely see that. And what I see and would like to see people do is really sit in stillness. It could be meditation, it could be prayer, and open up to receive information from the universe. Open up the heart. The heart is an electromagnetic organ that can receive information. The brain itself, it's a whole field, it's a whole antenna. And you can see that by just a lot of time we put the remote control onto our car to get a longer distance under our chin. Right. The brain is just that antenna, just amplifying that signal. So the bones in the brain and the cranial effect create this whole vibration and frequency. And we just open that up and accept all that information that is good in the universe into our body, and let us feel the love, the joy, and the peace that can be, versus everything else, war and everything that's going on. And then when we could find that love and peace and joy for ourselves, then we could spread it to the person next to us. And hopefully that chain goes on, and that vibration and that effect just keep on going and really changes. Because what we talk about in terms of pain is really a minute, very small component of everything else that is going on, but it's part of the suffering. And there is that component of the dark versus the light. There's that battle of the two constantly. And we gotta be part of the light and open up our heart, open up the light in our heart, the love, to send that out and suppresses everything else that is going on that is bad in the world.
I love that. And it's not just being a Pollyanna about the suffering and the war, etc., but it is like, we're not going to solve the same from the same consciousness level, the suffering. We're not going to solve that at that level of force meets force.
Yes.
You're suggesting where we have to have a higher level of consciousness to get us there.
Correct.
And you're helping with some remedies that will help relieve suffering, get people out of pain, so they're actually able to access their full antenna and get, because it's hard when you're in pain to think like you feel like you want to hold everything like this versus the opening your heart. That intentionality, will you speak to intention a bit here towards the end of the show?
Yes, yes. And the way that you can apply the cream into your daily routine, even if you don't have pain, is I do it every morning. When I get out of bed, I have a bottle next to my bed nightstand. In the morning when I wake up, I put some cream on my hand. I set that intention of what is going on, what I need to do to accomplish my day. And I set that intention, and really the love of everything that I've given out into the cream and all that frequency, it set that tone for me for that day. And then at night, I do the same thing before I climb into bed. I gave myself the love and the peace that it needs for a peaceful night of rest and recovery and rejuvenation. And what it does, it just changes my whole stress response system. And I haven't got it to a point where I raised enough money to really create salivary testing for cortisol, or even blood testing for cortisol, and really see how does this affect a person's cortisol level after using it for 30 days or whatever we want to do.
Oh, interesting.
But I know from experience that the cream help people manage their stress so much in terms of being more resilient, finding that peace of, into their life, changes their whole fight and flight mode, that changes their whole hormonal response system.
For sure. That whole balance, I love that, going from the bioenergetics into the biochemistry and the physiology into kind of the three-dimensional matter form of the body. You know, it does, they influence, you know, back and forth. So that's a great way of influencing at the energetic level of pulling us back into health, or a reminder for the intelligence to, like, this is health, right? We're giving you
Correct.
the signal of this is a healthy resonance that we're striving for, and as a reminder for our intelligence. I want to share, we're going to put the links on how to find you. It's mindbodymatrix.com. And I'm going to put the links in the show notes, and you so graciously gave us a discount code to share with our listeners. So it's for What the Health, WTH 20 is the discount code.
Yes.
I would, you know, folks, try it out. Let us know. Let me know what you think about it, because I've been using it. I've been giving it out to my family members, and I'm starting to use it clinically here as well. And it is, if you're looking for a different approach for pain, or you've been suffering for a while and, you know, you've done, you know, you can still continue doing your therapeutics, but just try this and let me know. Like, get in touch. I want some more communication this year in 2022.
Yes.
And we've got, so I thank you for that, for people to try. And I'm guessing, did they get, you know, you had a little card that came with mine. Does that come in the packaging?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
They'll get the full instruction on how to use it and stuff like that. So
I figured as much.
yeah.
Is there anything at the last 2 minutes that you would like to share? Any parting wisdom? It's been so fascinating. And I super appreciate you taking the time to come on and educate us.
Yeah, I unfortunately with current event, everything else that's going on in the world, we all can sit down and really pray and meditate and find that state of peace and love for ourselves and everyone else in the world. And hopefully with our intention and everybody's intention that comes together, create a higher vibration for our world to really hopefully take away the suffering that is going on and eliminate this war crap and all that stuff. But man,
I know. This, thank you for that. And it is the way, right? The answers lie within, and we're responsible for this space in here. So the more you can tune into those frequencies that you want to see more of on the planet, the better for all of us. So
yes,
Dr. TK, thank you so much for coming on to What the Health. Everybody, if you like this, I know you know people that are in pain. This could be the solution that they're looking for. So please share this show. Think of 2 people, share it with them. Get out there, give us those 5-star reviews. They do matter. We're growing in numbers. So I thank you. I wouldn't be doing it without you. So thank you for sharing the show. Give us those 5 stars. Let them know what you learned, because that's how we get the word out. It's not coming from above. It's coming from you and I and Dr. TK here on What the Health. We are here Tuesdays from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. We will see you next week.
thank you.